Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of Crit Hit Reviews with your host, Arlyeon. On today's episode, I'll be talking about the review copy I received of Zeboyd Games' comedic JRPG, Cthulhu Saves Christmas. Find out if I'd felt like I'd been put on the naughty list, or if this makes for a delightful digital stocking stuffer. Our holiday-themed adventure begins with Cthulhu rising from his dread slumber, poised to annihilate the world, only for him to receive a surprise Christmas gift. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, what he receives is the gift that keeps on giving, a level down that reduces him to the barest fraction of his strength. Enraged that the end of the world needs to be postponed, he decides that he must murder Santa and reclaim his might. Only, as it turns out, Santa's not the one in charge. It's in fact the League of Evil The League of Christmas Evil, joining together with Baba Yaga, Belsnickel, and Santa's granddaughter. He now engages in a festive rampage to save Christmas. And then destroy the world. Suffice to say, with a summary like that, you can expect the game to be absolutely ridiculous. So if you're a fan of puns and gags, the script is positively riddled with them, both from our heroes, the enemies, and your mostly helpful fourth-wall-breaking narrator. Inversely, however, if you're craving some serious drama or gravitas from your RPG experiences, you're never really going to find it, since any semblance of seriousness left about the moment the title screen dropped. I also found the storytelling process a bit curious at times, as the narrative alternates between you clearing dungeons and then spending time navigating the city and talking to the various characters in a series of skits that you get to choose between. Helpfully dubbed as the relationship system. Yes, like, you know, that city. It provides some non-linear bits of storytelling for players to explore, and, provided you pursue those skits to their conclusion, can even add some extra bits of content to the game's ending, which was a neat touch. That said, it definitely feels a bit experimental to a degree, which is perhaps reflective of the overall experience that is Cthulhu Saves Christmas. For those familiar with the studio's prior work, a number of the mechanics will feel familiar, but I'll still be chatting about them, if only because they do add some overall tactical elements to how the game's played. First off, the basic mainstays of RPG goodness are intact, with characters gaining stats and skills as they battle it out with, thematically appropriate antagonists. As per most Zeboyd titles, you have a limited loadout of usable items which you can bring into fights, which replenishes itself at the end of each fight. What's more, it eschews MP in favor of providing players with a set of abilities that have one use before they're expended. Sure, select characters do tend to have a sole ability that can be spammed, but to make the full use of a character's ability set, you'll need to frequently defend, as doing so refreshes skills. It also interacts with the Insanity skills system, which is a set of 3 skill slots that cannot be customized and are instead drawn from a pool of abilities which contain all the abilities a player doesn't have equipped, as well as a select few which uniquely appear in those slots. While they certainly can provide some fairly powerful and flexible options to your overall loadout, I, to be frank, wasn't the biggest fan of it, if only because it meant my overall kit wasn't quite as finely tailored as I wanted it to be. Nevertheless, the ability to both cycle those abilities as well as replenishing the ones I'd already used did help to make the defend ability feel tactical, especially in tandem with the Hyper system, which has been imported from Cosmic Star Heroine. For those unfamiliar, every turn your character gains a point towards entering Hyper mode, which, upon filling up, provides you a massive boost to the efficiency of your next action. Whilst characters do gain charges at the same rate, all the characters have different initial rates for entering Hyper mode, as well as reactivating it afterwards, adding a distinct flavor to the overall timing for ability use, and making sure that all of them have a different sort of pacing between your party members. And as a note, for those keeping count, yes, I'm talking a fair lot about these systems, and that's partly because a large gist of my time spent playing was wading through fights, and that's because Cthulhu Saves Christmas is a dungeon crawler. And a fairly linear one for the most part as well, since you can't revisit prior areas to scout it out for equipment you may have missed. And considering that there's no shops in the game, and the crux of your gear comes from pursuing relationships as well as opening chests and dungeons, that can really put a damper on your progression, since I found myself using some earlier bits of gear well into the endgame. Not because the stats were good, but because they provide some legitimately interesting passive abilities that changed up how a character's mechanics functioned, and even allowed normally limited abilities to be spammed indefinitely. That's not to say that the progression would have been impossible, given that the game A, heals you to full at the end of every fight, and B, has difficulty settings that you can freely swap between, and also C, allows you to save freely or retry fights. But you need to be cautious about advancing the story if you're concerned about missing out on nifty complements to your arsenal. I might have also gone a bit squinty-eyed about the town segments, since while it's neat that it provides you gear for your characters, the relative limited amount of time you get to explore it alongside your inability to predict what pursuing a given route is going to ultimately give you and for which characters left me feeling a bit hazy about it. Anyways, I will say I was at least pretty grateful about the way that the game handles random encounters, and that's because it gives you the ability to front-load them. Basically, while you can choose to wander around and trigger random encounters, you can also just trigger them on demand, and there's a limited amount provided in each area before they A, give you a massive amount of experience up front, B, stop randomly cropping up, and C, then proceed to offer you even more bonus experience if you decide to just keep spamming random encounters afterwards. So hey, if you feel the need to compulsively grind, the game certainly allows it, which ultimately makes things pretty accessible if you're having difficulty clearing a segment, and also means you can treasure hunt without being bogged down by suddenly being ambushed. So now that we've tackled the contents of the system, let's actually jump into the odds and ends of its style. First off, Cthulhu Saves Christmas looks fairly nice, though I did find that as the dungeons grow more expansive, I found myself encountering a degree of sameness between the various rooms. On the other hand, I really enjoy both the characters and the enemies' designs, especially in the latter case, given that the enemies all have alternate appearances when you drive them crazy. Whilst they're not necessarily pronounced, it's a neat little touch. What's more, the music in this game managed to be a legitimately solid job of just taking Christmas-flavored fanfare and making it into both great bits of ambient music, as well as some solid battle tracks. Gonna be causing me some ho-ho harm to my enemies while jamming out to these. I'm not sorry. Anyways, that brings us to the finale, and all in all, I stick by what I said earlier in this review. Cthulhu Saves Christmas comes off as an interesting but experimental piece. At its core, it feels like a streamlined dungeon crawler and a sort of systems test for a number of different combat elements, as well as revisions of earlier ones. Whilst it's certainly an interesting beast, I wasn't the biggest fan of the inability to revisit prior areas, nor the guesswork involved in the mechanical side of the game's relationship system. I did enjoy the overall battle system, but it falls a bit flatter on the narrative front, since it was primarily a vehicle for gags. And to a degree, that's fine if you're a fan of Zeboyd's penchant for heavily leaning on the fourth wall, wordplay, puns, you'll be in good company. But the combination of these facets is what ultimately leads me to dubbing it a fumble. And not one quite as endearing as my likewise named cat, despite its slick music. So anywho, thanks for tuning in. If you agree, disagree, or just have something to say to me, feel free to comment. And for those interested in more indie reviews, developer interviews, podcasts, or Monday TTRPG content, hit the subscribe button and the bell so you know when there's a new review. There's also a Discord. You can click the link in the banner or the description to become a part of our community, the Crit Hit Cauldron. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel, we do have a Ko-fi running now to help supplement funds for a lovely editor and to make sure to continue providing quality content. Again, check the description and banner for them links. That said, I'll catch you on the next episode of Crit Hit. Take care till then, folks.